So you stumbled upon our podcast.
Hope you got a lighter.
Yeah, I'm Lotta Locks.
That's your boy Keith.
Welcome to Functional Potheads. Ooh, smooth.
Yeah, that was
cool. So, what you smoking on?
Today, I got some peanut butter cookies from Top Cut, one of my favorite farms. Shout out to Top Cut. I have some oil that I'll be putting in my blunts, which is Solstice Mix.
Okay.
Like a bunch of strands from Solstice. I had the opportunity of working in the lab with some fine gentlemen there, so shout out to Solstice. Yeah, and some shit that I made personally.
Ooh.
Some freshly pressed, the light doesn't know justice, some freshly pressed rosin though.
Yeah. Okay.
Some.
Well, some light. I'm smoking some Purple Trainwreck. I'm actually smoking a blunt today because I'm out of papers and chips, and I wasn't leaving my house to get some, especially when I got a pack of some pronto. So I'm smoking that, and I'm smoking Purple Trainwreck by a company called Equinox. Yeah, I haven't actually.
Yo, I have like this crazy shit. I swear it's almost like borderline Rain Man, where like I could see the packaging, the lettering, the colors of something, and if I'm familiar with the brand, immediately know who it is.
Yeah.
I could see the fucking sticker just on the corner of a, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you're smoking. Like, it's crazy.
That's just retail experience. I'm hoping I get to that level of Rain Man. Well, what do you think about Equinox? I mean, personally, I think this is outdoor based on what it looks like.
If I'm not mistaken, I think they do like a light dep. So like light dep is basically like an outdoor setting where they have kind of like a little hood that they pull over the plants to give them like the simulation of like shorter days. So it's like more of like a controlled setting with an outdoor medium.
Got it. That makes sense. Based on what I'm seeing, like
I've smoked some good shit from them. I've had some cookies from them before. Smoked a couple of strands. I can't remember off the top of my head, but pretty solid weed, good price point.
Yeah, and I'm about to down an edible. I don't have the main packaging, but I believe it's the last one of my Smokies. Have you seen that brand? Is it called Smokies? No, I'm pretty sure it's called Smokies, but their tropical mix edible is 10 milligrams. Good flavor. Like, I have no complaints about the gummies. The packaging, they're in a strip, and so to rip one, it ends up being a big ordeal to just try to even get into the package and eat it. So maybe not do that anymore.
Yeah, they have to do singularly packaged. Well, they don't have to connect them, but they have to do singularly packaged. Washington state law.
I'm fine with that. Just not.
With no strips.
Yeah, man. That makes me work too hard. But I think it's for them to be able to save on their overall package.
Yeah. Every second spent like cutting is like, I mean, that shit adds up. So.
Exactly. How's weed helped you lately?
Learning, man. I've been researching a lot. I mean, especially with things to do with the podcast, I've been doing a lot more research and trying to understand local markets, be it black or, regulated.
Oh, bro, it's not black no more. I did some research on terms in the industry. It's illicit. There's a couple of key phrases, but black market is not it. It's not it. Illicit is the way we want to refer to it now, apparently.
The illicit market. Shadow market.
Right? But the reasoning the article had for it, I think it was cool, which is basically you're not acknowledging that the current market, the current cannabis industry sprung from this previous market, and it's only because it's federally illegal that it is a black market, because it could be regular. So just kind of ending the stigma on it, and I think that's reasonable.
I think it's more than reasonable. Seeing like a lot of these businesses are profiting off of the disparity of people who came before them without paying proper homage in any sort of way. Some companies, not all.
Okay then, because if you're not paying attention to it, cannabis companies left and right are exposing themselves. The owners are exposing themselves. The names that they thought they was going to get away with is being changed up. And I would like to congratulate the individuals into the cannabis industry, because unlike so many other markets like governmental work or any other industry where it is like an arm and a leg to get them to make changes, the individuals that are in the cannabis industry or cannabis consumers themselves are like, nah, we ain't with it. Let's protest them. We gonna be on your ass.
That's what should be happening, man. That's exactly what should be happening. Accountability. Exactly. Like if you could profit, then you could hold yourself accountable. Exactly.
So how weed has helped me, yay, career change. I'm actually in the industry, soon to be working. So I think it just has opened so many doors in this 1 year alone. So yay, cannabis. Like, thank you for accepting me and holding me tight. Well, we should probably take a quick break.
Quick ad break.
We're going to get back at you in a moment.
The Baker's Man Collective presents
And welcome back. Now for our segment, Cannabis News. Lotta Locks has some for us.
Okay. So remember, I think it was last episode we were talking about the smell test or any of that bullshit that was going on.
Yes.
Well, Washington has leveled up on it, in my opinion. So Washington State has created or in the process of forming the odor task force, which like makes no sense to me, but their goal would be to advise regulators like LCB board on the possible impact of cannabis odors on human health, which I'm like, what?
That's ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous, but apparently the article is saying that there's been RICO acts due to like they've been working, right? But basically people in other states where it's legal are coming together to protest the strong odor of cannabis. And people have been making complaints to not RICO acts, but the department that what RICO stands for, have been sending complaints to them talking about their health concerns. So the person that they spoke to in this article was basically like, this is fucking stupid, but if you're going to do this, you have to make it scientific based and regulate it as if you were regulating odor as a result of farming. You know what I mean? Like, investigate it along those lines, because it's literally another thing that adds to the over-regulation of cannabis in Washington. Like, we're regulated as fuck out here for
and
one
then
of the first places.
What happens with this, right? If they are the regulator, right? So they're gonna make all these demands of businesses, and it just deepens the cut of that profit margin. And like, I mean, makes it just harder for people to operate. You already have to give like the bare minimum of the price that you want to get for something, and then operation costs, and then to add to the operation costs, they're going to add more operation costs for something as minor as like a smell. But I guess I'm impartial because we smoke weed. But even if I didn't, and the odor was like bad in my neighborhood, I'd much rather that than live by a landfill, which would, like, how much more regulations are they going to put on the landfill?
Or like oil refineries,
or fucking
industrial. Yeah, like what,
like
what, bro? So letting it go, but I just wanted to bring that up from the last time. What you got out there? I hope it's not as ridiculous as this shit.
No, it's actually pretty cool. Vermont will be legalizing soon. Well, legalizing recreational, because they already had a legal status. So weed was legal. You could have up to an ounce. You can grow up to 2 plants. But then for the people that live there and who are renters, it's like, well, I can't grow 2 plants. And I would love recreational cannabis. Like, so what are we going to do about this? So it was an issue that was addressed in 2019 and now is being rectified in 2020. And they will be setting up a legal market and giving out, can't remember exactly how many licenses, but they are starting a social equity program.
Yes.
So that's good. Yeah.
Can't even be mad. Hopefully they go along the lines of Illinois with their programming and how they do it.
Oh, right now, speaking of Illinois, booming, they done broke another record.
Oh, they did.
Another record, $60 million in cannabis sales.
Wow. Well, another avenue of good news, more on an international level, South Africa, which I've heard about in attending these webinars and whatnot, like being a market for the cannabis industry. Like it's just their name is being sprinkled a lot, but other countries in Africa too, Zimbabwe, the I don't know how to say this, Lesotho or Lesotho, and South Africa are the leading markets in the cannabis industry in Africa. But South Africa itself, a company that's there called Chiba Africa, which is a cannabis health and wellness company, created the first online academy. So they're working towards training people and educating them in the cannabis industry. And I'm like, thank you, because everywhere like starts backwards. They start like a whole like legalized selling market, and then it's like, oh man, we need regulations on how to grow it. Oh man, we need regulations on like how to process it and how to test it. Oh, extraction is like like it's chemistry and things can blow up. Like it's just all working its way backwards, and again speaks to the infancy of the cannabis. Like,
and then you have like a funneling of information. So it starts at like the growers, and it's basically funneled to the bud tenders, who have to further dumb it down and funnel it to the consumers. When you could start a program like before legalization even like is up and running, so people understand like what exactly it takes to grow. I mean, what exactly are you getting? What pesticides and fungicides are illegal, and why they're illegal, and what industries don't use this and why they don't use this. That's dope.
Yeah.
Education first, man.
Yeah, for sure. The online portal is operated in partnership with Medical Marijuana 411. So that's a company that offers, like, I think, certification and education out here in the United States. But what they did was update the information to reflect their actual like climate and local policies. So smartly adjusting the information, because at the end of the day, the cannabis industry is an agricultural market. Like it falls in under that umbrella. And when you're under that umbrella, what you cannot take away from that is climate, because it affects your products. And that slides right on into the next news, which I've been seeing left and right. The weather is messing up cannabis industry nationwide. The weather itself has been crazy. Like right now, we're burning on the West Coast, freezing in the middle, and then like in the southern portion, hurricanes. So like all types of things are happening across the United States.
Northeast too.
Yep.
Northeast has been hit.
Yep. So early September, a cold snap happened in Colorado, which they were not prepared for because it's way too early and may have affected their outdoor crop and like cost them millions.
Yeah. There's companies projecting 100% loss. There's hemp companies projecting 100% loss. There's flower companies. Early projections were like 60, and now they're probably like 75% loss. They got in some areas like a foot and a half, 2 feet of snow.
Wow.
Earliest cold snap like this, like recorded in like recent history in Colorado.
Mm-hmm. So for you listeners to get maybe a little bit of understanding, what generally happens right now in the cannabis industry is that, well, leading in October, you start cropping out your fall.
Croptober.
Yeah. So that goes down. And what that does is that the outdoor crops usually get sold at a lower price point, which then drives
supply and demand.
Yeah, supply and so then it drives the overall price down, because now we have a large amount of outdoor crop. So the overall price to the consumer gets dropped during this time. So much so that other companies plan what they're growing during this period based on this information. You know, not just what they're growing or what they're going to put out. So are we going to do our indoor top shelf, crop that out right now? Or are we going to do a little bit like you said, light depths? Or are we going to put those out?
Yeah.
But these strains are so specific that we're still going to keep our customers. So since the freezing happened, the cold snap, there might not be this decrease in the market.
Cold snap and the Cali fires.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was going because like it's one versus the other. Cold snap versus the blazing fires in Cali. So in the Emerald Triangle, if you don't know, well, it's not quite there, but Cali's on fire, and their concern is that the fire was moving westward, which was approaching the Emerald Triangle in Cali. And again, for you listeners that don't know, the Emerald Triangle produces a large it houses a large amount of cannabis farms.
And some of the most knowledgeable cannabis wizards known to mankind.
Exactly.
That have there's people that have been growing for generations in that area. Like, and they know the plant better than anybody, and their livelihood is in jeopardy.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have lost their livelihood, but like it's spreading, and they're afraid of the growth and spread of the fire, and their ability to be able to like contain it. And then really, really concerned, because if it reaches that region is mostly like trees. It's densely populated trees.
And for the officials, they're concerned that people who have invested their entire life with this cannabis farm are not going to listen to evacuation stuff, because they're going to try to harvest their crop. They're going to try to do like save something, and therefore put their life at risk. So that's like doubling the concern of that state right now. So all of this, seeing like, I was like, dang, Colorado outdoors at risk, Cali outdoors at risk. Like, what does that mean for outdoor crops this year coming out? And on top of that, what does that mean for the illicit market for places that don't actually have any local growth?
Not just outdoor. A lot of these facilities also had indoor structures where they also grew like their top shelf cannabis. And that essentially of like markets all over, because the things that are being reported are the legal grows that have been destroyed. There's probably countless illegal or illicit grows. Yeah, I mean, where they're producing a lot of flower for the illicit market. So we've already seen bumps in the illicit market, like continuously the last several months.
Yes.
So this is just going to be another bump up. So I hope everybody got their pockets right. That's all I'm saying. You saved your some of your ducks.
Exactly, especially if you need your medicine. So what else you got for me?
Next up, the MORE Act is something that the Democrats wanted to put into place, which basically would decriminalize weed on a federal level, which is one of the more favorable things that can happen, honestly. So it breaks it down, and they have a community equity section set into it where they are able to educate people and kind of give job placement to people who have been affected by the drug war.
And expunge those records.
Expunging records, mass expunging of records. But because of the current climate of COVID, the bill was shot down by other Democrats. So it will be shelved for right now, because it's a political year, and they have to figure out how to appease the larger community rather than just the cannabis community.
Exactly.
Which honestly, like, I kind of feel like getting something like this up and running right now might set the position for a lot of states to be able to legalize locally, which is one of the things that they're pushing for. They don't want to legalize on a federal level. They want states to decide what they're going to do. But that might be able to push certain states over that tipping point to legalize locally and create markets and generate income, which will kind of help the economy that is failing and like really, really hurt right now because of COVID.
Yep.
But COVID comes first, so they have to really buckle down and really figure out how to get this COVID relief act in. So we'll be seeing the revisiting of this after.
Yeah, I'm hearing you, and I'm listening to this in my head, and I'm like,
but there's a chance that it's not going to go through, because the Republicans fucking hate it.
They do. On top of that, like, just listening to it overall, right? Like, our system, if you're really looking at it, their decision making has like damn near ground to a halt on anything beneficial for the public, because they're poor managers. And that's the only way I can put it in a structure that I can understand. Like, our government, the management of this country is trash. And it's trash, and I'm not speaking just about Trump. It's trash because every other country came together and was like, yo, we just gonna send you a check for this amount of months. And so all they had to do was just extend how many months they were doing it. They set the system up to make sense right away. You know, what if it doesn't just take 2 or 3 months? What if it just takes 6 months? Whatever. Hell, France, I think, is just like cutting checks through the rest of the year into the next one. Like, The United States is like, oh, here's some $1,200. We finally gonna come up with something. Here's some money. Here's $1,200. Let's save our corporations, as if the people don't spend their dollars at these
With the
corporations. So you sent them tons of money to bail them out. Meanwhile, the poor man, or the average Joe, really not the poor man, the average Joe is like, yo, can you just send me another $1,200 so I can, like, you know, keep my car
together? This should afloat for a little bit longer.
You know, so what if you had just said, let's give them $1,200 from March to June. Let's every month, $1,200 from March to June, instead of making them go from your $1,200 plus unemployment, and then now, of course, the scamming that's going on in unemployment, all of that's going to come down to money is just made up shit. Because you just come up with numbers and you're giving money out in these other areas, and you could have just sent them one main check with all of this funding per month, and we wouldn't
as a wise man once said on the show of Atlanta, everything's made up, nigga. Stay woke. Like, I mean,
it is though. Everything's made up. News for me, the other two things that caught my eye, first and foremost, Aurora Cannabis. And that name might sound familiar to all of the average people, and definitely to those in the cannabis industry, because they hit the news real popular last year about going on the New York Stock Exchange, and like, we're so great, we're gonna have huge, like, I think billions, you know, like millions, touted millions were gonna be the profits.
I believe we spoke about them in another episode. I think they purchased another company for like 83 million, and another company prior to that, which is probably going to cost them about the same amount that they just purchased that prior company for, 63 million, I think it was. But what's poppin'? What's going on with them now?
So now they kind of have to own up to the predictions that they were making before and account themselves for their balance sheet, because it just don't make sense. Basically, in a recent press conference, they announced their new CEO, and you know, CEO change usually happens when there are big going on, or someone has been there so long that they want to retire and move on to something else. So
and this is fairly new, so I can't picture that being the case. Exactly.
So Miguel Martin will be the new CEO of the company. So this press conference was like, oh, here's this new guy, and by the way, here's the bad news. We have a whole bunch of impairment charges. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like, are these like criminal charges? Like, what are you talking about? But that's an accounting term. An impairment charge is something that's described as a permanent reduction in the value of a company's asset. So we're telling you right now how we valued ourselves when we jumped onto the market, and everything we predicted in other quarters, it's a little off right now. Unfortunately for them, when they said a little, they meant 1.8 billion Canadian.
Whoa.
Yeah.
1.8 billion?
Yeah.
What a B.
With a B. Big boy. And basically, what you do to your shareholders every fiscal quarter is you kind of tell them, this is where we're expecting to be. And right now we're approaching Q4. So on top of this, in this press conference, they were like, by the way, next quarter, there's probably going to be a loss in the net revenue of the company, and definitely in cannabis net revenue, there's going to be a loss. Oh, also, I don't know if you remember that press conference, we're terminating our partnership with the UFC because they had struck a deal with the UFC to do testing, like basically to see if CBD or hemp extracted products would be useful for mixed martial artists. Basically like the same thing that's going on, I think, with the NFL. It's either the NFL or the NBA. I think the NFL though. So they're also like, oh, by the way, that contract's out. But whatever that contract was supposed to be valued and end up turning in revenue, they haven't added that into the 1.8 billion in impairment.
And I'm pretty sure that's another big chunk.
Bruh. So I was like, damn, like when I'm reading this article trying to just digest it, I was like, whoa, my G.
So what I think is happening, right, is people see cannabis and they're like, oh man, we can make billions of dollars doing this. And they get into it with a very set business mindset. Like they're selling tomatoes or they're selling potatoes but what you don't understand is the cannabis consumer is much more fickle than the tomato consumer. I mean, the cannabis consumer is going to look into your company and see what you guys are really about. The cannabis consumer is going to pay attention to what you're putting out, and then if they have a complaint and that complaint's not heard or something of that nature, or you guys are doing some underhanded shit, like the cannabis consumer remembers and the cannabis consumer knows. And the other thing about cannabis is there's no illicit fucking tomato market. I mean, there is an illicit cannabis market, and the illicit cannabis market has always been there for people. Yeah, I mean, in a situation where there are people who care about the type of flower that they're putting out, who care about the type of concentrates and extracts and edibles that they're putting out. So
to speak to that, Aurora Cannabis isn't a tiny company. I want you to understand.
No, it's fucking huge.
They have 15 production facilities and a production, export, partnerships, or research presence in at least 24 countries. They're massive. They spread out. And what did I tell you what happens when a company gets really, really large in trying to produce their products? And now the consumer, just like he said, I'm very, very picky about my weed. So if the quality of your product isn't that great, it's going to affect you drastically. On top of that, climate and COVID. Just wow. But the takeaway from this, honestly, which I'm really grateful for the webinars that I am attending, because this investing webinar put this in perspective, that like investing in the cannabis industry right now, in any company, whatever it is, you have to understand, no matter how large they are, this is still an infantile market. And something so simple as a law change could have dramatic effects on how businesses run and produce. So this is a long game. If you're gonna put up money, make sure you got money to lose, because you might have put in, 15,000 in this company and they lost all of this stuff, but they could make this back in the next year. Like tens of billions, I think, get sold in the illicit market. Tens of millions. I don't know. It's a crazy number.
I just looked it up actually. 6.8 billion made annually.
On the illicit market alone.
On the illicit market alone.
I want you to understand that. So like, there is money to be had in cannabis, but the things that the regulators and the governmental processes that are affecting and slowing down everything can affect your investment. Finally, something on like just as frustrating, if not maybe more so for me personally, Twitter decided to come for cannabis. They decided to come and just open fire like shots, and they don't even want to talk about it, because the people who wrote this article reached out to them and be like, yo, what's goody? And they didn't have no response. They didn't answer back nothing. So let me tell you what happened. So the Twitter is partnering with the FDA, and remember, we done told you these people shiesty, right? So to promote substance misuse treatment resources when users of the platform search marijuana or other substance-related keywords, right? So basically, if you're like us, you're on Twitter, you just want to see what the latest cannabis influencer is talking about, or blah, 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 or maybe just the funniest joke about cannabis, you know what I mean, that someone has tweeted, and you search like cannabis or marijuana. When you do that, the post itself is going to have this, you know how they have those like sensitive content warnings? It's going to have that warning on it. And the warning itself is in partnership with the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, right? I want you to understand this is because...
Wait, so I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
I got to look this shit up, because I want to know if it also comes up when you search meth, because that is a booming thing right now. Like people posting videos of themselves smoking meth. Very interesting.
Please look that up. Let me see right quick. While you're doing that, let me explain what this article was like. Even more so, this alert doesn't pop up when you search anything related to alcohol. Now tell me the fuck why. Tell me why. Because they do a good job of like giving you context. They're saying, well, the WHO reports more than 3 million people die from the harmful use of alcohol each year, while the DEA has admitted that there have been no reported deaths related to cannabis overdose. So if you go on Twitter right now and you look up anything with alcohol, you can literally find Twitter pages for like Smirnoff and all these other companies promoting the use of their product.
So it does come up when you search meth.
Okay, good, great, it should.
Like at least it's a blanket thing.
Yeah.
I don't feel as targeted, but at least it's a blanket thing. But we also have to take into account that in some states this is legal, and in some states this is medical.
It's not the same. And if you want to talk about it, nothing about alcohol is medical. You know what I mean? And in fact, at one point, it was illegal. So,
I mean, if you get shot and you put a little bit of alcohol in a wound, like to disinfect it,
that helps.
like,
I would prefer you to just, apply some pressure and get your ass in the car. Don't try to clear it up and doctor it up if you're running. But, like they report gunshot wounds. So maybe if you are running, find your local veterinarian. Okay, so I just, you know what, Twitter? A hearty fuck you. Fuck you to that. Like, some of it, great.
Fuck you, and kudos for, like, including meth. Like, because weed's been singled out for shit a lot. Like, and I feel like if, like, at least they're including meth. At least they're like, hey, if you're smoking meth, we could get you some help. You know what I mean? Because I don't think there's any therapeutic fucking use for meth. So maybe I'm just early on the research on it. They're like, hey, if you want to lose your teeth really quickly,
and your job and your family,
but mainly your teeth. Like, I mean, if you want to lose your teeth really quickly to get dentures, you can use meth medically. Oh,
okay. Options, folks. Options.
You got options. Yeah, I mean, that's what life's about.
Dentists are trifling, and they are expensive, and not covered by a lot of insurance. So try some meth. Please don't. But
that was a joke.
Yeah, that's a joke. By the way, before we get into this, I just want to say real quick, before we get into to what the Terp's talking about, I put that purple train wreck by Equinox in a joint paper. Way more Terps. Way more Terps. And I was like, oh, I like how this tastes. I like how this strain tastes. So maybe before I kind of felt a little way about it, but I'm not talking trash about the tobacco because it was a good balanced high that I needed. Again, I like it first, but it came through. The flavor came through.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta taste shit. Like I want to get like a tabletop, maybe.
Ooh.
Like one of the old school shits with the whip and everything. You know what I mean? Okay. That shit, because then, like, I didn't know anything about Terps then. We were, like, baking it just to get just enough, like, fucking THC out of it. Like, we were probably heating it a little bit too high. But now that I know about Terps and, like, with, like, temperature, they start to, bake off fat. And, like, so you can really, really get that taste. Like, I might have to get a tabletop, man. It's for sure.
Is that why a lot of growers, well, at least the growers, in my experience, have, like, volcanoes and stuff, because like you bake the weed and then you can really get all the flavors out of it. Word. We'll get into it. Talk to him.
So since we talking about Terps talking machine, today our terpene is humulene.
Okay.
Now humulene is a very interesting terpene for several reasons. It is one terpene that is very prevalent in another known recreational thing, hops, which are used to make beer. So it is also one of the most abundant terpenes found in cannabis, but it is never the main star. It's always the background. So it's like that background guy that's giving you the, or the hype man.
Okay.
It's what gives almost all weed that spicy, herbaceous taste. It is also anti-inflammatory. And some of your favorite strands, including sherbet, Girl Scout cookie, gelato, Death Star, headband, thin mint, original glue, Candyland, which is a really good strand. But it gives you a base in which to build and connect with other terpenes. And I also spoke about before with you guys how terpenes kind of like to group together. Based on structure. It is a sesquiterpene, which means it has more connections to the original based on the structure. So it is often found right behind caryophyllene. So if you could find a plant that's really, really spicy and peppery, right behind caryophyllene, almost always will be humulene.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing with me.
Anytime. I love terps.
I've heard of cannabis compared to hops. So
the genus of cannabis and hops is all the same genus. Like, so they come from that same core category.
And not just that, but like suggestions of regulating the market, just like how hops is being treated in the production of like beer. Just that whole process is as a model, if they could just get their head out of their ass and use it as such. So I thank you for sharing, my brother. Maybe we should take a quick break before we get into the light up and listen.
Break.
The Baker's Man Collective presents.
Yo, and we're back. It's time for Light Up and Listen. So personally, I've been listening to that Big Sean Detroit 2 album. What you think about it?
So this is the thing. I used to really fuck with Big Sean, but like he's an artist in which, like, as I grew older and kind of transitioned to another phase of my life, like we grew apart. So I haven't really fucked with his music in a while. I don't know. It doesn't have the same feel to me.
Okay.
Or appeal as it used to. But like, if it's one of your choices, I'm gonna have to fuck with it.
So you haven't listened to it at all?
Nah.
Buddy. Bro, you have, okay, go and listen to it, homie. Just go and listen to it. Just give it a listen. Like, cause for me, I like, if it's popular to some people and a lot of people like it, I like to just at least give it one play to see if at least maybe I like a couple songs off of it, if not the whole thing. And I will say that I like this Big Sean. I like this version of him. There's a period in the middle, like, you're right, that I was like, man, I don't give a hell what you're saying. And you and your girl are toxic as fuck. Just the back and forth between each other. But that's your life, my opinion. So I think he stepped into, like, this is my life and I'm going to live it this way. And he's promoting, maybe he's reached a higher level of self within him. And now I can fuck with his music again. That's kind of how it was for me. In the beginning, it was fire because, like, at the end of the day, what you cannot say is that Big Sean can't rap. He can rap. It was just a message that I just didn't care about.
I can't connect with. I can't fuck
with. I felt like you were wasting your talent there for a minute in the middle. But that got you a certain fan base that opened it up for you over there.
So I ain't mad at you. I ain't mad at you. I just
it's just discussion. Also, another controversial person, I guess to some, Young Boy Never Broke Again dropped his album Top, and I can see why he's controversial. He is an interesting human being, but I fuck with Louisiana and I like the music that comes out of there, and I kind of like his singy rappy thing. He needs a therapist, hardcore.
So this is my thing. I don't know nothing about the kid. I've never really fucked with his music, but I kept seeing these fucking memes and videos of people knocking shit over while playing this person. So I've heard like a couple of his shits, and I'm like, this is cool. But after like seeing so much, I'm like, I have to check this fucking out.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, like, no matter, he might be, a little, but unstable. The kid can fucking rap.
He can. And for me, I like when he combines with Kevin Gates. Ooh, I will drive recklessly. Do not cross me when I'm bumping them. I'm liable to do just about anything, which is the point of the memes. That wild and reckless side of yourself, like when you banging, like how, I know to an extent Tupac was, like when you riding, I'm not saying his bar skills or whatever are on that's not it. I'm not comparing them as artists. What I'm comparing
you're comparing is the energy of the music.
Exactly, and the feeling you get. Like you might have fought a cop if you had just finished listening to Tupac.
Or Nuck If You Buck.
Or See Murder. Like you know what I mean? Down with my niggas. Like you might do some reckless stuff. I have seen way too many fights when those songs come on in the club, being from the South. So I can't not bang the homie, but he needs some therapy. What about you?
Yo, so speaking of therapy, this ties into like my first Light Up and Listen choice. I recently started reading the Autobiography of Gucci Mane.
Word.
And
Tell me more.
I just want to take a few seconds to, you know what I mean, to tell anybody, like, I mean, that's listening. If you ever need an ear or somebody to talk to, hit my inbox, because shit's crazy. Like, I mean, as I'm reading it, as entertaining as it is and as dope as it is to like read the background story of a very pivotal era in my life musically, like, and like just socially, because you know, music connects with the brain like in amazing ways. So like Gucci Mane, and at one point like was a big chunk of like what I was listening to when I was going through or what I was doing. So to read this and hear like where this dude was coming from and self-medicating, and yeah, I mean his conviction like to not only like overcome like what's been put in his path, but surpassing that. There's just these moments in his life where he just had so many stumbles, and it's just a crazy book, a good read all around. And it's written just like, I feel like it was more of a conversational piece, like somebody recorded as writing, because the way it's written, Gucci's talking to you.
Okay,
like,
cool.
So it's a dope book, definitely good read. But somebody that he talks about,
audiobook,
like,
because if Gucci Mane will read me that
yo,
book,
that would be fucking crazy. Audible needs to make it happen. Leading into that, one of his biggest producers who basically came up with him was Zaytoven. Zaytoven just dropped Pack Just Landed 2. Mm-hmm. And it's basically a bunch of Zaytoven beats. He has a couple beats where he works with other producers and some up-and-coming artists, some known artists. But if you want something to just like, I mean, party, listen to, I mean, trap shit, that shit hits.
I bumped it today because I saw it on the list, and I was like, oh, I didn't know you dropped this. Let me look. It's cool. Like for me, like he is a great producer. He makes dope beats. Like you said, you know, I like to hear Gucci over his beats to some extent. I think he's the one that like really, I don't know, they in the pocket together, you know? Yeah. I mean, like his beats are made for Gucci's voice.
He says it in the book that like they connected on like a different level, like, and fucking had it been up to Zaytoven, every beat that Gucci ever rapped over would have been a Zaytoven beat. Yeah. But like, I mean, Gucci also became good friends with Mike Wilmeda. He actually gave Mike Wilmeda his name, like fucking in like one of their first tracks together. But this is an interesting read, interesting listen. Yep. But you know, I always gotta have some East Coast shit. So Conway just dropped a new album. These motherfuckers are dropping shit back to back to back. Griselda, if you don't know what's going on, you need to figure it the fuck out. Griselda is hitting right now, and Conway's shit is crazy. And he actually has a few tracks that have features on them from outside of Griselda and even like outside of like the Shady Records label. So that's just an interesting listen. And he got a track on there with Benny the Butcher. Always gotta have a Benny the Butcher fucking feature on the Conway album. Shit's heavy, man.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna tune in. You sold it. You sold it. Cha-ching. Okay, here's the money. As soon as we hang up, I'm gonna listen to it. Honorable mention for me that just came up today. I told you I like the Bennett Brothers. Chance the Rapper is featured on a Dustin Bieber song, and them hooking up and actually being friends. It's so wholesome. But the song is called Holy, and I think it's honorable to me because being a like OG Chance fan, like he literally pivoted in his life and took God into his life, and like also pivoted with his music. Not too far off that the average consumer can't still mess with it, but the underlining message is there. And I mean, I know it's a thing, but like for me, this is what really mainstreamed Christian hip hop for me, you know what I mean? Like, not this track, but Chance as an artist. I have listened to it, like I know Kirk Franklin, like OGs and In the Middle, but I don't, like, I like to see it live. That is something that literally puts me in awe and gives me chills when I'm there and live, and it's not something that I turn on every day, you know, and tune into, but there are dope artists out there that is love and hated genre, so check it out.
I'm gonna check it out, Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber and Chance the Rapper.
I think we gave it to him at this episode.
I think so too. That shit came like effortlessly. We're getting better at this shit, bro. This is crazy.
Killing it. Well, it's dope you took the time to have a J with us.
Remember, we're just two functional potheads out here trying to bring light and truth about cannabis.
And we out.